Welcome to Saturday versus Sunday. I'm Jeff Dover. With me is John Barbin. Let's talk football.
Right, we're talking NFL, our reaction to, I guess this was week 9, and starting with our best evers and then our worst evers and then some flowers and coal. I couldn't come up with too many flowers.
Yeah, your coal section's getting bigger by the week. It's what also I'd like to give flowers to people who leave a like and subscribe to the channel. That really helps us out.
It'd be wonderful. All right, shall I get started?
Please.
All right. So best ever number 3, working backwards from 3 to 1, is Joe Burrow. 27 for 39, 251, 5 TDs.
Hence the T-shirt.
Hence the T-shirt. I'm still hanging on to hope.
I know you are.
I know it's highly unlikely given their record and with the Ravens in their division. That's a real problem. But that's again, and that game is coming up. But God damn it, he is one of the best 3 quarterbacks. He is. The team's not great, but he's that good.
We've pronounced the team dead, I think, twice now this season, and we've pronounced them as like the only team that could beat the Chiefs in the playoff game twice this season. So this was one of the games. They're back. They're back, baby.
They're back, baby. I can't help it. This is bad. This is really bad. But it's just a shame that one of the only quarterbacks who is that good is stuck on a team that looks like the teams just can't. I mean, how do you?
Other than Jamar Chase, yes, it's a real challenge.
But I just don't get how this team was in the Super Bowl just a couple of years ago, and now this is the type of performance they're putting in.
Yeah,
I mean, and again, I'm in the middle. This is my best ever this week, but. All right. Anyway, so he looked good, and I'm a sucker for the hope here with the Bengals. So
perfect. Those are good.
Burrow looked really good.
Yeah, that's true. All right, my number 3 best thing I saw in the NFL this weekend was the Buffalo-Miami game. I remember a time where that game was always a key matchup, 2 really good teams. This reminded me of those old rivalries. That and Tua looked really good considering, how much time he's missed and his injuries and concussions and stuff. I'm always sort of, because there was real talk about him retiring after the last one, and so he looked great. So for him to come back and look that good, and that was Miami is a different team with him leading it. So that took everything Buffalo had to win that one, and so but I just thoroughly enjoyed that game, and it wasn't ruined by penalties, which happened to a couple other NFL games
so often.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a huge deal. I listened to a couple other people mention the idea of the gap between Tua and his backups.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's other teams that, for example, the Green Bay Packers, when Malik Willis goes in, they're still utterly capable of winning real games. And when, Anthony Richardson's out and Joe Flacco's in, they can still win a game. Yep. Pittsburgh Steelers can go 2 quarterbacks deep. There's multiple teams around the league. I'm sure I'm missing others that can go 2 quarterback. Hell, Cooper Rush looks just as good as Dak Prescott. I mean, they both lose, but they don't look any different.
No.
Whereas once Tua's out, this team's hopeless.
Yeah.
And not only that, they're unwatchably bad. It's just there's no point in tuning in. So that's good proof that he's a legit quarterback. I don't think he's going to ever win them any real playoff games, but you kind of just saw how much different it is. If he's in or out, you've got a team worth watching versus a team that's not even worth tuning into. Yeah. All right. So my number 2 best thing I saw right back into that game was Tyler Bass' 61-yard game-winning field goal. That's a long one. Yeah. And I was actually surprised when they started lining up for it. But I guess at that point, you have nothing to lose. Just go for it.
Well, and that was, if you heard on the broadcast, they were like, this is a great Hail Mary position, like that. And then when they lined up for the kick, he's like, I'm surprised they're doing this because he felt that at least the broadcast felt that the Hail Mary was a higher percentage than a 61-yard field goal at that point. So,
and he got it with room to spare too.
Yeah, he did. He hammered it.
He nailed that. And in the last couple of weeks, I've seen some pretty bad field goal kicking. So it was impressive to see. It was impressive to see a long field goal, like a clutch field goal to win a divisional game too. So that was, you're right. That was a great game, and it had a awesome game-winning ending, game-winning kick for an ending.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Okay, second best thing that I saw in the NFL this weekend was the Washington football team in a very efficient Jayden Daniels, hence the T-shirt this week. So Jayden Daniels, 15 for 22 for 209 yards, 2 TDs, no sacks. And, that's what they needed to do to win. A good game on the road. They were in control really most of the time, had 0 turnovers. It's just a really efficient road win. Take the win and get out of town kind of the situation.
He looks
So
like he's a 5 or 6 year starter.
yeah, no, I really, and especially coming off like that, you're never really sure about an oblique injury, but it looks like he's got no problem with that, and needed to keep pace with the Philly too in the division. So no, just really, really, really impressive game.
I'm always, I don't know. When other commentators and people talk about the idea that NFL quarterbacks, rookies should sit behind a guy and, learn and all that stuff. But then how do you explain Jaden Daniels? How do you explain
Yeah,
CJ Stroud?
and probably Drake May too, right? I'd probably put that in the category now where
He looked good. Did you see any of that game?
Yes,
He looked really good.
He did.
And then
More on New England later.
Right.
But yes, but May looked good.
But then they'll throw that argument out with Caleb Williams, and they'll throw that argument out with Bryce Young.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't hold when you have other guys doing just fine. But then look at Jordan Love. He's, he did the whole sit thing, and he's still a wild card. So
yeah, he did the whole sit thing and looked rough for a little bit, but now is really coming into form. So it's they lost, but the weather was terrible.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, but that was that's when it happens, it's great. So
yeah. I don't know. And in this day and age, with the way the salaries are, I guess you just have to put the guy in and see if he can go.
Well, that brings up a really interesting point about the Minnesota game. This is another thing that the broadcasters mentioned, because Sam Darnold's having, like, I can't remember what they said. It was like his fourth team in 4 years or something like that, right? And he's having a real resurgence. But JJ McCarthy is like the guy they drafted high, and the guy made a really interesting point on the broadcast, was like, this is in their financial plan. Like they need to have a cheap quarterback and then spend the money on the people around it. So like they can't keep Darnold, like, and do this going forward, right? Because that's the whole thing has been structured around this. Yeah. So that's which sort of reminds me of the Washington situation. Like coming in, it was going to be pretty much Daniels. You know what I mean? Like, because I don't think they have a salary cap room to pay anyone more at that position, So
it's almost like the Niners is the model now. Have a super cheap QB and go to the Super Bowl with a super cheap QB.
Yeah, and as long as you have all the personnel around, right? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It seems a little bit risky to make that your model, but anyways. All right. So the number one best thing I saw this week in the NFL was one-handed touchdown catches.
Ooh, there's a couple.
So we got 4 great ones. So we got Devontae Smith. I didn't really get eyes on this game because who cares? Philadelphia should beat Jacksonville. They did beat Jacksonville, but holy smokes, that was an awesome catch.
Mm-hmm.
Then Garrett Wilson on Thursday night, that one-hander. Now, I have an issue with the absurdity of considering 1 foot in, then when that same leg's shin touches down, that's considered down and in, even though that shin was in the process of the shin hitting and then the knee hitting out of bounds. So somehow a foot and half of the shin of that foot is in, yet Pickens, that same foot twice, is not in. To me, that just seems, and then the argument back is like, well, the shin counts as down, whereas a foot twice is still not down. Right. But I still don't get how the same foot and just the lower shin, like, how ridiculous is that? That they're like, well, part of the shin was down before the knee hit out of bounds.
This is the one thing I think they've got better in college. Like, I just go the 1 foot thing, 1 foot in. Why do you need 2? Just go 1 foot. I mean, that's fine. It works fine. Like,
another thing, okay. So this is a gripe I have with this stupid in and out foot thing. So if you just touch your toes, that's in. But if you're falling backwards, catching the ball,
and your heel,
and your toes are on the ground, and then your heel touches down out of bounds, you're out.
Yeah.
And did you see Saquon Barkley do this?
Yeah.
He was falling backwards. He toe touched, then jumped out, and that's in. But if he toe touches and then lets his heels drop, then he's out.
Yeah.
It should just, then how? I don't get that. It's either the whole foot or only half the foot.
Yeah.
Because then on the way out, why isn't a heel down in?
Right.
And who cares if the toe touches afterwards? That's the same argument with half the shin touching, but then when the knee touches out of bounds, like, how is, I don't know. It's so subjective, and they start slicing it so finely, and none of it makes sense when you compare one to the other. And now there is a rule, and by rule, it's just, I think the rule's stupid. So
Yeah, no, I agree.
Anyways, I'm not done with the catches. So Garrett Wilson, anyways, good for him. That was a stellar catch. Then Jordan Addison. Holy smokes. The diving sideways one. It looked like he had two hands, but on the replay, it's just, no, that was a one-hander too. That was amazing. And then the best one, only because of the actual outcome. By the way, these are all TD passes. Demarcus Robinson TD touchdown pass in overtime. It was probably the least dramatic stretching for it, but either way, he had a defender on him, still a one-handed catch and the win in overtime. Also, bananas to call that play and throw that ball. That was just wild.
Very true. Yeah, those were good.
They only needed a field goal to win that game at that point.
Yes. Yeah. No, that was no, those are all really one-handed catches are great, and it really shows you how good some of them are. You know, with that, like, because they do that all in practice all the time. Like, they'll do drills just catching. So, all right, the number one best thing I saw in the NFL, this weekend was Detroit winning at Green Bay. Partly because Green Bay had the old uniforms on, which was super cool.
They looked awesome.
Because it looked really good, and also because the weather there was horrendous, like, which wreaked havoc on our over bet, because that didn't cash, which was, that was a case if we were at like a casino, we'd place that bet, and then they start the game, like they're about to kick off the game, and you see what it's like there. I would have run up and taken the bet away, because there's no chance of it going over with it looking like that. But it's but anyway, but I can't. That's got to be one of the tougher road games. Are always harder, but a road game in that environment, in that weather, against a divisional opponent, and to come away with a win was super cool. So
the argument back is Jordan Love's that leg injury's for real. He's hobbling around all game long, and that's part of his game. He needs to, even if it's
have
just
that option,
even if it's just confidence in throwing the ball. Because there's, what was it? An adductor? Was it a hip flexor?
I don't know. I can't
remember. Whatever it is, it's. Oh no, it's something in his groin. Either way, it's up. It's in the upper part of his thigh, and that's not good. Like, you could just tell he was. I actually think Blake Willis should have been in that game, at least by half, because you could tell Love just wasn't all there. And that interception he threw, that was
pretty
horrific.
rough.
But that might be partly just because of how he was feeling. Because normally he's
better.
He's better than that, and he's not going to make some of those mistakes. And also, he just should be more mobile, but obviously he wasn't. Anyways, also good for the Lions for overcoming what the naysayers were saying about them being an indoor, specifically Goff, an indoor, whatever, dome type player. That was awful, and they had that game in control the whole time. There was no real threat of Green Bay ever really winning that game. Now, again, caveat, Love was hurt.
Yeah, this could have been real sloppy. Like, this could have been all kinds of fumbles, all kinds of turnovers, like a real rock fight, and it wasn't. Like, they were moving the ball, and in a game in a conditions like that, the Detroit had no turnovers and Green Bay had one. So that's
and at one point the broadcast was pointing out that sort of narrative about Goff, and then he's like, "Oh, but he's 11 for 11 tonight." So he looked great.
Fine.
I think now they look like the best team in the whole NFL. I kept saying the NFC, but if you just took the story of the Chiefs away, so you didn't know they're back-to-back defending Super Bowl champs, and you just played all of their games and played all of Detroit's games to somebody who's just naive to football and said, which one of those is the best team in the NFL? Well, obviously the blue team.
Yeah.
Because KC fumbles their way through games, throwing interceptions, ugly offense. Now, great defense. But somebody might say, well, that red team just gets by on defense. And that blue team's just a complete team in all phases. Like, to me, that's how someone who has no preconceived notion of which one is the true champ. So I don't know, that they're rounding into form big time.
Very true.
All right. So we're moving on to worst evers.
Yep.
I always feel like I have more to pare down here. This list is usually so big. All right. So worst ever. 2 players getting ejected. Puka Nacua and Brian Branch. These goddamn referees. in both cases, it was ridiculous. So let's cover Brian Branch first.
Okay.
Their argument was he had an option to pull up and he didn't. And kind of has to show intent to harm too, I guess. And I thought, man, I have seen way worse hits than that not even get called at all, let alone get ejected. And even the broadcast was thinking, like, holy smokes, what's going on here?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it didn't affect the game, even though he's their best secondary player. But that for sure felt like out of nowhere, like out of left field when he got ejected. I mean, everyone was stunned. Obviously, the Green Bay fans were happy about it. But again, the broadcast had the exact same reaction I did. It's like, oh, what the hell are they doing here?
Yeah.
Just because you see way worse hits than that routinely. And it wasn't a straight on spear like you'd see in the 80s and 90s. It was a side shot where he hit the guy with the side of his helmet, not the crown of his helmet. He connected with that guy's helmet, but also his shoulder hit him too. It just looked to me like, okay, maybe call it a late hit he could have pulled up. But other than that, it wasn't targeting, no intent to harm. That was just bullshit. And the refs, I mean, I don't want to complain about the refs, but holy smokes, they're terrible every week. Then Puka Nacua for throwing a essentially innocuous slappy punch at a guy. Just how many times do you see guys throw punches at each other? Every game, somebody gets pissy at the end of a play and throws a punch. They'll get the 15-yarder, but you don't just throw the guy out. This is that both of those just blew me away. It's as if they had a meeting. The refs were anything you see, like just pull the trigger and eject. I mean, when's the last time you saw 2 NFL players get ejected in the same week? I don't think I've seen 2 in a year. And 2 in the same day. I couldn't believe it. It's just another piece of this narrative. It's starting to seem like refs have been told to crack down on all kinds of stuff. One of something that didn't make my worst ever list, but might be in my lump of coal, I guess, is all the pre-snap penalties. It just along this line of just there's so many flags. Maybe historically it's the same, and I'm just more aware because I'm paying attention to more games. But it just seems like the refs have a shorter trigger, whatever. Pulling, obviously you can pull the flag out as often as you want, but man, it just seems like they're choosing to. And those 2 ejections, I think, were way over the line.
No, it's you're right about someone swings at someone and that's an automatic 15-yard penalty. I'm surprised when it's an ejection, like when it's, you know what I mean? So
it happens all the time.
Yeah.
Anyways, all right, moving on.
Okay, so the number 3 worst thing that I saw in the NFL this weekend was the Saints having 427 yards on offense, no turnovers, only giving up 246 yards to the Panthers, and still losing and dominating the time of possessions. It's crazy. So I guess a sort of flowers would go to Bryce Young. There was an interesting article or line in the ESPN thing saying that out of 20 starts, this is the first time he's lined up in the victory formation ever. That's says something. But like, gosh, they should have won that game, and it's really embarrassing to lose like that.
I almost had the Panthers shirt on the wall, and I thought, no. That's still not a wall worthy game. No. It's just, I mean,
again, last week we were praising, there was like a game-winning drive that was really impressive, and that's like in Carolina did that, to win the game, but it just didn't feel like it this time compared to that other game. So
yeah. All right. All right. Number 2 worst thing I saw this week was Geno Smith. 3 interceptions, 2 of them in the end zone, one of them for a 103-yard pick six, and he got sacked 7 times. Yeah. Okay, I can't put all 7 sacks on him, but he's just not it. And this team it's too bad because this team's really talented, but he's just not it.
Yeah. I mean, I do. Yes, technically, like it's about protection, and there's a few other things, like that. But when he has to pass that many times, he still had over 34 pass attempts, so like when you're, yes. So like that, and we've talked about this before, when you're that one-dimensional in the NFL, you can't do it, right? Like the teams are too good to offset it. And that's a great example of what happens. Like, because 3 interceptions and 7 sacks, that's like killing 10 drives, like that's, you just can't do that and win. So.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is they've got a home run hitter at running back. Like Kenneth Walker's legit.
He is.
To me, he's kind of like a Barkley sort of player. And it just goes to show you, if you can't block the run game, it doesn't matter who's back there. You could have Walter. Okay, I'm not going to go as far as Walter Payton, but it kind of doesn't matter who's back there. If you just can't block it up, they're just not going to go anywhere, because he looks like he's on the verge of breaking every single run, but just the blocking scheme breaks down way too quickly. So
Mm-hmm.
that offense is, man, it's got all kinds of pieces, but if your O-line can't run block, it just doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Number 2 worst thing that I saw in the NFL was the New England defense. That they've been carrying them all season. Like we've known that they've struggled with offense a little bit, but the defense is normally on point. But they gave up 400 yards to Tennessee, and they made their running back Pollard look like Peyton, like Walter Payton, like you were talking about before. So I just don't know where that came from. Like the New England's not a good team, but at least their defense was good. So that was disappointing to see that.
Yeah, I'm not so sure. I was kind of toying around with that one because they also spoiled Drake May's amazing game tying drive with that. Did you see the scramble?
Yeah,
for the game tying touchdown.
He's playing well.
He's there. I think. Again, I've been lamenting this why it took them so goddamn long to put him in the first place, and he was getting the ball out quickly. He was throwing the wide side outs. He looks already much further along than Caleb Williams. Like just the way he like processes and delivers the ball. Either that or they're just telling him like just get it out fast and don't bother going through all the I don't know what it is, but it's just shocking that it took him this long and he looks this good. And
it's shocking how comfortable he looks like in a not a great team. You know, like that's what's impressive. So
and he takes off when he needs to and gets a lot of yards with his legs when he needs to. So obviously it's not a great team, not a great offensive line or anything, but he looks the part, and it's just too bad his defense couldn't even keep him in that game.
Well, North Carolina has taken a bit of a tumble ever since he left, and so I think it's one of those cases where like he was really holding a lot together apparently on that team,
and they were on a run of good QBs, but he's the one.
Yeah.
Like they had Sam Howell and a couple others that looked really good. They went to the NFL, they didn't make it, but he looks like he's going to be the one that makes it out of that run.
Yeah.
All right, so the number one worst thing I saw is very similar to your Saints evaluation was the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh, good
They had more total yards, more rushing yards, more first downs. They ran about 18 more plays. They were +1 in the turnover margin, and they still lost. And they they outrushed the other team, which they never do.
Yeah.
I watched the game, and it never looked like they were in that game.
No.
And when I looked at the stat line, I couldn't believe that they had across the board, they were just better on the stat line. And it just shows you stats don't win you games. Just like what you said about the New Orleans game. And I don't even know what to make of that, where a team just does everything statistically better and still loses.
No, and you're right. It was in the win probability thing. It's all in Atlanta's favor, like really
the
from
the
get-go, which is crazy that they're, like you said, did all those positive things, right? But
and it's not like there was a disparity in third down efficiency. Nothing. There was just the Cowboys. If you covered up the teams in the final score and you just looked at the stat lines, you'd be like, okay, so the Cowboys obviously won this game. And no, I mean, it's just, I mean, that's pretty embarrassing. Also within that game, Prescott got hurt throwing the ball, but it looks like it was his leg. And maybe he was gripping the back of his leg, and if you saw the slow motion replay, it looked like it really hurt. Whatever happened there, and then just to add insult to injury, shortly thereafter, CeeDee Lamb landed really hard on his shoulder, so the two of them were sitting on the sidelines, and so with your two most expensive players on the sideline, Cooper Rush comes in and just scores a touchdown and looks just as good as Dak.
Yeah.
Like I actually don't see the difference in the offense when Rush is in.
Yeah, I had Dallas on my worst ever list, but so many people talk about them. I just didn't have the effort to give them more time. But they're deserving to be on the worst ever, like this week in the list. So, and it's also the mood, right? Like everyone, you can see it's degenerating, and there's more blame and there's more stuff like being leaked and and that's,
and Elliott didn't even travel with the team.
Yeah. So like that there's a lot of signs that's not good for that team.
I just can't believe Jerry Jones is still keeping up the facade that he thinks this is a winning team and he put together a good team. I don't know.
I just can't. Well, he can't admit that he was wrong. So
yeah. Oh well. Well, what's your worst ever?
Yeah, the number one worst ever thing we covered it was Geno Smith because it was really bad. Like, and it's really hard to say the worst ever thing. Like he threw for 363 yards. Like and 3 TDs. Like, that's a good thing. But man, when you have 3 interceptions and 7 sacks, like that's just
Yeah.
you can't win like that. And
I have more to say about this game.
and
Yeah.
you're really undoing the 363 pass yards, like it's really.
But this is but we keep covering them, and this is an ongoing theme. If you can't run, it doesn't matter if you pass for 700 yards.
Exactly.
If you can't run,
no,
and you're prone to turning the ball over the way he is, it just won't matter.
No, it just won't work like that. Yeah.
And their red zone offense continues to be horrifically bad.
Yes. Well, because you can't, if they know you're just passing in the red zone, that's going to be
we gave him piles of coal last week or the week before for having 2 trips in the red zone and coming away with no points, or no, 3 maybe points, whatever it was awful. They just kept going straight backwards on the 1st and goals. They couldn't even get in. So all right, Flowers and Cole.
Yep.
All right, so my one, I have 2 Flowers here. So first, Grover Stewart. This was did you see this play with the Colts?
No.
It was okay. So Grover Stewart.
I saw the Colts games, but
so defensive tackle. He had a sack, fumble, 6. Well, he caused this. He got the sack, caused the fumble. Then one of his teammates picked it up for 6.
Yeah. Okay.
But he, in that one play, if you just watch the replay, he runs over the guard so badly. He just throws the guard right on his back, like the first jam right off the line. The guard's on his back, steps over him, then grabs Darnold and throws him to the ground like he's like a child, like a rag doll. The ball comes flying out, and then a whole host of Colts pick up the ball, run in the end zone, and that's their only actual touchdown in that game. But that one play was just such a dominant. It was as if no one was in front of him. He went and what's this? A 300-pound man that goes right through. It's just one of those times.
I think it was a center. I don't know if it was the guard. I thought it was.
No, I think
center.
He went right through the guard.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
But it was. I remember thinking when they showed him on the sideline, because he was like on the sideline after all that, and like the shoulder pads and helmet like look small for him. Like he looks like a large person. Like
that's a good D line.
Oh man, yeah, they are.
And I mean, it was just there. It's as if no one was there. He just went straight through to the quarterback. It happened so fast.
Yeah,
it's just shocking to me that men that large can
fast
and blast right through another guy that's over 300 pounds as if he's not there.
Yeah.
So so that was, as I saw that replay, I'm like, that's just the quintessential best play a defensive lineman could possibly have. The only thing better is if he also picked the ball up and ran it in. But either way, that was awesome.
It's really, I don't think a lot of people realize like how fast the defensive linemen are. It reminds me of a CFL story. I don't want to, throw too many people off about talking about the other professional league that's in North America, but it's there was a friend of mine was working with the Alouettes, which is a team in Montreal, and they brought a guy up from the US, like from the NFL, because I think he failed too many drug tests or something like that. Anyway, he was a defensive end. They brought him up, and there was like first thing at practice, he like lines up, and then the left tackle was looking against him, and he snaps the ball, and the left tackle gets out of his stance, and he was gone. Like he's not in front of him, like he was already behind him, and like didn't even see him. Like that, like that's how.
He's like, I guess he went and lined up on the other side.
That's how fat. Like that was just a speed you don't see. Like, and that was so. Anyway, so it really says something. Like when they're that big and that fast with it.
And for people who aren't aware, the CFL is full of NCAA players that just couldn't make the NFL. So it's not like that guy who's trying to block him has never played top level college football or anything.
Yeah, no, it's like Chad Johnson was a wide receiver for the Montreal team and stuff. Like it was anyway. My first flowers is the John Barbin Cincinnati Hopes. So we got to give flowers to that because they're, like you said, they looked like the real deal. So I've been waiting for that all season. So
man, I'm a sucker for that.
The next one I had was Jackson Smith and Jigba, just because someone had to catch those 360 yards from Geno Smith. So, and he had 180 yards. So he was great. He's a great player, and it's just too bad that that goes towards a losing effort. But
okay. And one thing I'll do is I'll give Geno Smith some flowers for catching the Rams constantly offside and burning them badly on those go balls. I mean, I think he got 2 touchdowns that way. At least one of those Njigba touchdowns. He recognized I got him and we're just going. Yeah. And good for Njigba for knowing, this, whatever the route was, forget it, just go.
Yeah.
And that became like a standard play for them, is catching the Rams D-line offside.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
very true. That's nice of you to do that.
right. So let me lean into that defense of the Rams and specifically that line. So the Rams D line gets a lump of coal for constantly jumping offside and giving up those 2 TDs. It was just brutal. I don't know how you keep getting burned with this. Like, we're at the NFL level here. This is all part of those pre-snap penalties because technically offside's pre-snap.
Yep.
What are you doing? Like, this is just fundamental. Do not go until the ball is snapped. Doesn't matter hard counts. You should be well past getting burned on hard counts in the NFL. I mean, it's just, look what it did. The only reason this game was even close was you kept jumping offside and giving them free plays.
Yeah.
And Smith and Njigba and that receiving course good enough to recognize, we're going. And they hit them. They hit them. Yeah. So you get a lump of coal for that. But then the Rams defense overall gets flowers for 7 sacks and 8 tackles for loss. So it's kind of a two-edged sword. And Verse, he is a man. Yes, he is a beast. So he's only just going to get better. He might be one of the premier defensive ends He kind of looks like he's going to become a Myles Garrett type of player.
Yeah. Yeah. One sack, he looks amazing for a loss. He was
just all over him all game long.
Yeah. Yep. No, and this is like the Rams have quietly won 3 in a row now, and it's and at Seattle is not a given. But they're starting to play like the playoff team we thought they would be, right? Mm-hmm. So,
and I'll give flowers to the Seattle crowd too. That's one of the only stadiums in the NFL that always sounds like a college game.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, what else you got?
That's it for me, I think.
Yeah, that's all the coal I have to give out. Didn't have too many other flowers. We covered all the good players in our best ever, anyways. All right. Well, I mean, do we need to even evaluate which league won the week at this point?
Probably not, but I just enjoy the college games. Just so much more entertaining.
Yeah, they are for me too. But college wins for both of us. But if the NFL ever does win, we'll point it out.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I mean that's good for this week. Stay tuned and get our locks of the year of the week coming up for college.
Another winning week for
NFL.
Yeah,
we had another winning week. So
NFL and college.
If you guys are following along, you're cashing in big time with us. All right. We'll talk to you soon.